We continue our series on the Golan Heights with a stop here near the southern portion near the Sea of Galilee. Our visit will be to the el-Qanatir synagogue that's in the high ground before you would head downhill in the Wadi Samek down to the lake below. Our host today is Yair Mazur from Ami Travel.
This is the synagogue.
This synagogue is in the process of being rebuilt from its own ruins, and that crane you just saw is part of the equipment that is being used to move the rocks around. As we walk down the stairs and get ready to enter the synagogue, you can see off to the left the stones that currently still need to be collected and placed in the synagogue. The el-Qanatir synagogue ruins were discovered by L. Oliphant and G. Shoemaker in 1884, and it generally looked like this before they started rebuilding it.
How did this concept of synagogue start? We have phase 1 synagogue and phase 2 synagogues. The word synagogue means in Greek to convene. To convene. Synagogue, synagoga, convene, period. Knesset, it's a Greek, synagoga. In Hebrew, Knesset to convene. But function 1, what was function 1? And when did function 1 end? When did function 1 or function 2 begin? What's a demarcation? The demarcation is the destruction of the temple, 9/11. Okay? What was function 1 in? I say 9/11 symbolically. It's Tisha B'Av because we used this term yesterday. Tisha B'Av is symbolically 9/11. Tisha B'Av, right? It correlates to 9/11. So phase 1 synagogues were used for what purpose? What did Jesus do in Nazareth or in Capernaum? He taught. Yes. He read. Yes. Once the temple was destroyed, now the sacrifices are no longer happening because the temple is destroyed, right? Mm-hmm. So now phase 2 synagogue started once the temple was destroyed to substitute the temple that no longer exists. In other words, the prayers substitute sacrifice. Prayer, so this is phase 2 synagogue. There's only 7 type phase 1. Magdala, has anyone been to Magdala? I think we went together. Yeah. Is a recently discovered phase 1.
Well, let's take a brief pause and go over and look at the Migdal synagogue. You can see it is not very big, and it's all facing internal. People would sit around and assemble together. Very different inside architecture and furnishings.
Phase 1, teaching and reading, like Jesus sat and taught in Nazareth and so on. He taught in the synagogue. Remember in Mark and John, okay. So phase 2 synagogue, we find them a lot in the Galilee. Why in the Galilee? What happened once the temple was destroyed in Jerusalem? The temple was a centralistic institution, right? For political, religious, and economical purposes, right? It was up there in Jerusalem. 100,000 to 1 million. We have different chronicles mentioning Jews going there on the 3 main Jewish festivities. You know, the Passover, Pentecost, I don't have to tell you that, right? It was centralistic. No authority wanted competition, right? So politically, economically, and let's say religiously, it was there in Jerusalem. It was a center. For better and for worse, it was a center. Once the temple was destroyed, synagogues were established, like we said, and the focal point of synagogues, phase 2, following the destruction, was towards Jerusalem. You go to your favorite synagogue. You go to your favorite synagogue worldwide. It always faces Jerusalem. Phase 1 synagogue, teaching and praying, the focal point was internal. You faced each other. Here you face Jerusalem. So you can see here behind me the bima. So we'll talk about the bima in a minute, but just keep in mind that on the Golan Heights, we recently discovered, I mean in the past 100 years, 30 synagogues that were built following the destruction of the temple. 100 approximately in the Galilee alone. Roughly 100, okay? different shapes, different forms, the different typologies by historians, but the focal point was external to Jerusalem, and it's more elaborate. In Hebrew, one of the words for synagogue is small temple. It's a miniature temple. It's to substitute, and you know that. I'm probably preaching to the crowd here, right? To the choir, as you say. Now, you know there's no Jewish architecture. There is no Jewish architecture. Jews always assimilated. Roman, nave, aisles, pagodas in the Far East, and so on. Now, this synagogue was discovered 100 years ago by Sir Lawrence Oliphant, a British. And only in the past maybe 10, 15 years, it's been reconstructed with a new technology by an archaeologist who names himself Yeshu. Restoration Ancient Technology, Yeshua.com. So he uses modern technology, different devices, and so on. So you go to your favorite synagogue, on the wall facing Jerusalem, you'll find what? Decorations of artifacts that were used at the temple but no longer exist. They're gone, like the ark, right? So you'll find, not the ark, an ark. Where is the ark? We don't know. There's one person who knows. His name is Steven Spielberg. Maybe. So we can have a look here. So you can see the, I can't tell you precisely, but maybe one of the stones has been reconstructed. I don't know which one exactly. But can you all see the candelabra? There's a few of them. Can you see candelabra? The menorah, right? What is this? This is the shovel for the ashes of the incense, from the altar of the incense. And this is a lulav and an etrog for Feast of Tabernacles, Feast of Booths, right? Because some stones have been reconstructed. There's another synagogue not far from here in Chorazin. Remember Chorazin? We find the seat of Moses. Remember the seat of Moses? Mentioned in Matthew 20. 30 on the Golan Heights, demolished basically, and close to 100 in Galilee. Why did the synagogue start here? What reason? This was mountainous, so the Jews could start phase 2 synagogue far away from the Romans. It wouldn't bother them, most likely.
Question. It looks like up here that there's eagles.
Yeah, that's a Roman symbol. We find it in other synagogues.
But why would the Jews want a Roman symbol in their synagogue?
It's a Roman decoration. Now he assumes, the archaeologist, this is where they were positioned.
One of the things that Yair also said about this particular exploration is that they are using X-rays to look down into the stone and try to see what's there without having to take things apart. The process of excavating this particular synagogue has been going on for 15 years now. Now in our next segment, we're going to go up onto the plains and talk about some of the amazing things that happened in 67. Then we're going to move on to the heights that will overlook Syria. And as you see in the distance there's a white-capped mountain. We're also going to get much closer to Mount Hermon before our series is done. So I hope you've enjoyed this excursion to the el-Qanatir synagogue. And until next time, Shalom.